customers feel you're more interested in yourself, you're more interested in hitting your target, you're more interested in your own success rather than theirs, that's where the trust is going to collapse. And humans have got good BS detectors. It's stuff they will pick up on. So it's not a question of being able to act that well. It is genuinely having the other party's best interests at heart.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes.
And welcome to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. And yeah, it is with me. It's a solo episode. It's part of this mini series, which is breaking down the ethical model. So the ethical model is what's at the heart of my book, Ethical Selling. And so we're going through each of these elements bit by bit in short, easy to consume episodes. So today's episode, we're talking about two key elements in ethical selling, which is transparency and integrity. So it's the T in the model. And look, these aren't just buzzwords. They're foundational for building trust in sales. And we know that trust is what is going to keep business relationships thriving. That's at the core of how we're going to work with people. First quick big question I'm starting to answer it already is why are transparency and integrity so critical to sales success? Well, let's think about it. At the core, transparency means being open and clear. So honest about your product, your services, strengths, and its limitations. And so integrity then is staying true to your word and to your moral compass, even when it can be tempting to cut corners or to do things to close a deal. Now, I just want you to imagine a world where sales professionals never hid the small print. They didn't exaggerate benefits. They never over-promised on timelines. Customers would trust us more. Decisions would become easier. Relationships would last longer. I think some ways we've built a bit of a rod for our own back. And the truth is, buyers today are demanding this. We've made people really skeptical of the kind of the salesy talk, and they value sellers who are able to say, look, here's what works, and here's what might not work for you. So they're being open, they're being honest. Yeah, they're not worried about losing the deal. It's about winning trust and doing the right thing for the customer. So in the book, I borrow from a book, The Trusted Advisors. So these are three Harvard business professors who have developed what they call the trust equation. And this is just such a fantastic way to understand how trust works. You can see why it's Harvard Business School level stuff. But if you want to just write this down, the trust equation is T equals C plus R plus I divided by S. Okay, so what am I talking about here? So the C, so T is trust, and the C is credibility. In other words, do you know your stuff? R is reliability. Do you do what you say you're going to do? I is intimacy. Do customers feel safe sharing challenges, sharing information with you? That's the top of the equation. And lots of people do this, and they'll do it because it makes sense, because it actually makes you easier to sell more. But the S is self-orientation. Are you focused on them or just yourself? So if we think about it, this numerator, the top of the equation, the credibility, the reliability, the intimacy, yeah, they're great for building trust. But if we get the denominator, we get the bottom part of the equation wrong, it can absolutely kill it. Because if customers feel you're more interested in yourself, you're more interested in hitting your target, you're more interested in your own success rather than theirs, that's where the trust is going to collapse. And humans have got good BS detectors. It's stuff they will pick up on. So it's not a question of being able to act that well. It is genuinely having the other party's best interests at heart. So in some ways, the key to transparency and integrity is it's pretty simple. Your self orientation has got to be low. Your focus has got to be on the customer, what is best for them. So I want to kind of give a little example around this, and this is the concept of leading with a flaw. Now, I cannot think about transparency without thinking about Todd Capone, the guest on this podcast before, and author of The Transparency Sale. And when I interviewed him, he shared with me this concept where we lead with a flaw, which is we talk about something that we might not necessarily be good at. Now, I've integrated this into training now. I think it's such a cool thing, and I can see why he's such a popular author. And I was working with a software company, and what they did is they were honest about a known limitation in their product whenever they were talking about it. Instead of hiding it, they all got into the habit of saying, this particular feature isn't our strongest. Now, if that's a priority for you, we might not the best fit. However, here is where we do excel in these areas. And if that's more important to you, if that aligns to your goals, then that's where we are a better option. The point of doing this was that their buyers respected their honesty, that they appreciated that focus on the value for them rather than perfection, or rather than the company sort of being almost like too good to be true. And so it's easier for them to choose to work with that company because the trust was established early on. Yeah, they would talk about this stuff early. That's why Todd talks about leading with a flaw. It's a massive credibility builder. Yeah, to a degree, it shows that you're confident in your offer, in your position, and as a trusted advisor. Yeah, that's how you're perceived. You don't come across as the pushy salesperson. So yeah, let's go into tips. I'm trying to keep a similar format in these podcasts, and if you listen to the last one, I finished with sort of three or four tips. So how can you incorporate this into your sales process? Well, yeah, lead with the flaw. Let's, I said that already. So be upfront about limitations in your product and your service. That is going to build credibility, to take away the suspicion that the buyers do have. Make sure we comply, or make sure we provide complete information. Now, salespeople can be great at cherry picking the details, saying the stuff that we want people to hear, but isn't really helping the customer to make an informed decision. Informed decision making is a key part of ethical selling, even if that means they're not going to choose us. But we've got to lay out those details and help them to make that best decision for them. Now, one of the ways in laying out this information is a mutual action plan. I'm a big fan of mutual action plans. And so this is a way in which we can collaborate with our customers, collaborate with them, and sharing a plan that outlines the responsibilities, the timelines, the milestones, the things that they are going to need to do to get the outcomes that they're looking for. Now, there's an important bit of language here. And there is a colleague of mine, Tom Williams, who talks about outcome enablement plans. In other words, look, we understand what you're trying to achieve. That's the outcome. And so these are the things you're going to have to do to get there. And we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. It takes away any confusion, takes away ambiguity, and it reinforces trust. That we know what it is that they're trying to do and how they're going to do it. Probably goes without saying that we've got to deliver on promises. Being reliable matters. If you say you're going to follow up tomorrow. And look, it could be small stuff, but this compounds over time. That trust builds, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, probably a bit repetitive, but just focus on the customer's success. In other words, take away that self-orientation. Yeah. And then the question you're asking yourself is, like, am I helping the customer win, or am I just chasing the sale? Or what am I here for? What am I just doing? These aren't complicated. I try to keep everything in the book simple enough for pretty much everyone in sales to be able to understand and apply. And I know that they can build habit. And when they build habit and practice those consistently, we're going to create loyal customers who do see us as partners, not just a vendor. Yeah. So as we start to wrap up, in summary, transparency and integrity are about operating with honesty and clarity. Yeah, when we're open about both strengths and limitations, when we deliver on what we say, then we become more than just a seller. Yeah, it was someone who customers can trust. So yeah, what I'm setting out to do in this little mini series is to put a little challenge in place at the end of every episode. So challenge with this one is that in a customer conversation, you lead with a flaw. Yeah, go with that Club Capone tactic. Yeah, so be honest about one part of your product or service that isn't necessarily the best, but focus on the overall value that you're bringing. Give people that option. Give it a go. Give it a go. You will be surprised how powerful it is, and how it can, become a really very positive habit. Yeah. So look, thanks for joining me on this episode of Sales Today. In the next one, I'm going to continue breaking down the ethical model. We move on to the H, so that is holistic, value-centric approach, and really think about how that can help you up your sales game. But as always, look, if you enjoyed the episode, share it with colleagues, subscribe, leave a little review, buy the book. But yeah, until next time, keep selling ethically.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the collaborative selling scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.